Okay. All right. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody doing? Good. Yeah, it's still early, right? I have a 4-year-old, and you know what he says to me some days? He goes, "Mommy, too early for talking." Right? So sometimes it is too early for talking. Unfortunately, we'll be talking in here today. So design thinking, is that what we all want to talk about today? Everyone bring with you a device, like maybe something connected to the internet, like a cell phone or laptop?
Yes.
All right, good. We're going to use something. Anyone ever used a tool called Menti.com? Mentimeter? No, a few of you, yeah. Poll Anywhere is another one. So what's really cool about these tools, how many of you are Agile coaches or do any facilitation of big meetings, things like that? Yeah? So these tools allow online real-time polling with whoever is in your meeting or your group. So if you're working on new techniques or you're asking questions or you want some feedback, a lot of times we struggle, right? You'll ask people and they may not respond. But this allows anonymous polling, real time. They don't have to sign up for an account or anything like that. There's a version of it that's actually free. I believe the paid for version that we use is about, I don't know, $150 a year. So really reasonable, and you can do as many polls as you want. You can use it in every meeting if you want. It's pretty cool. So we'll show you how we do that in a second, and we'll be using that throughout the course. Sound fair? Yep. So you'll want your cell phones somewhere near you, which usually we have them pretty close anyways, right? Myself, so who am I? I'm Jennifer Bonine. I'm the CEO of a company called Pink Lion AI. So we do AI technologies in the world out to app teams and dev teams and all of that type of stuff. So lots of experience in that space. We're funded by Google. Anyone heard of them, that search engine? Yeah, and we usually use that one. So we're a Google AI portfolio company. Anyone know what that means? No. Google basically is invested in 27 companies that they believe are the next gen tech for AI. So they created a whole portfolio just around artificial intelligence in companies that will actually be responsible for leading artificial intelligence for their platforms. So we work very closely with them. So the strategies we're going to talk about for design thinking today come a lot from two places. Apple and Google use them as they build products. We were actually just having a little debate up here about Apple and something they missed on their latest design in their computers. So a little flaw there we'll tell you about later. But we work with them. And then MIT. So MIT teaches a lot of courses on this and has a lot of ideas on how to utilize this. You'll also see as we go through the course, many of the products we use every day were designed using this process. So when we leave today, the goal is by the time you head to lunch that you will have a new strategy and a template to take with you on how to leverage this if you want your team starting tomorrow. So that's what it's all about. Sound fair? Okay, cool. I've got some of the team here with me that you'll see around. So Marcus is standing in the back there. That's Marcus. So if you need something, he's around. Marcus is our head of customer engagement and product and marketing. We've got Jodelle, who runs all of our events. So you may see stuff from her. And then Chris is our head of technology and chief security officer. As you can imagine, when you work with all this AI stuff, we have a lot of data. You got to keep it secure, right? Perfect. Did anyone see the latest stats on the average cost of a security breach in your systems? I just saw the latest stat that came out. It was over $4 million when you're breached, average. Some companies is more. Pretty interesting. So here's two other cohorts. You won't see them. These are my co-founders of Pink Lion AI. It has the URL, so you guys want to go to www.menti.com. So if you type that in a URL, a link somewhere on your phone, your laptop, wherever you want. And then what it'll do is it'll basically should just, once you put that in, it should just ask you for the code. Don't worry about the code right now. Each survey we do is gonna have a code, and I'll give you the code each time before we poll you. Sound fair? We're going to do a test poll just to make sure we're all awake and we understand how to poll so that we can do it as we go through this session for the rest of the morning here. Everyone got menti.com though loaded in your phone? You're ready to go? Pretty easy. We'll just put in a code when we're ready. I'm going to show you a quick video. One of the things about design thinking is understanding what you're trying to build and what it looks like. So anyone ever read Simon Simiak's book, Know Your Why or Start With Why? Yeah? So that's what we did when we designed the things we were doing and how we go to market to different industries for Pink Lion. So I'll show you a video that kind of shows you our design thought process of what we're trying to build when we build things, just to get your mind going. So we'll see if this works.
Games aren't static. They're played on the train to work, with new outfits and levels released daily. That new bunny suit? Tested, bought, confirmed, and the users love it. Media isn't one size fits all. Complex algorithms learn which rom-coms are perfect for Saturday night and what to add to a newsfeed for Monday. Personalized content equals happier user. Transportation doesn't involve unfolding a map, but using a phone to deploy complex logistics that safely summon the closest driver in an unfamiliar city. A teen's first car has more tech than the moon landing, and mom wants that stuff tested. There's more customer data that can help engineer new features and make sure your customers feel happy and safe. Travel is more than a 2-week trip to Bora Bora. It's loyalty programs that remember a customer's favorite tropical drink and curate new trips to satisfy their wanderlust. Every industry now involves technology, and if you want it to work, it has to be tested at scale with reliability. Help your team create with confidence. Wow users with flawless experiences, all at superhuman speeds. Pink Lion AI, bringing AI to the world's app teams.
All right. Do you like the roar part? We have one without it. I told him it was more fun with it. I personally like it. All right, so here's what we'll talk about today. So Foresight, we have to imagine for our products what the future is we want for those products, right? So to be able to see where they're going, we have to have that foresight. And what that takes for us is being able to imagine the future of the product. What do we want it to be? Once we know what we want it to be, we can discuss what that looks like and discuss that future once we align to that vision or goal of what it is that we want for the future of the product. And then once we start discussing, design thinking allows us to actually shape that future and align to the vision, right? So that's the whole concept, is if we want to envision where we want to go and what the product will look like, we have to actually empathize and put ourselves in the role of that consumer and really understanding what they want and need. Anyone been to Europe lately? Yes? Okay. Anyone been in Hungary lately? No? Anyone know if you can use Lyft or Uber or rideshare in Hungary? In France you can. Now imagine, right? So we all got, how many of you use Uber or Lyft or rideshare when you go places, right? Now imagine that you are in a place where that doesn't, you've had it, right? Because we get used to features that we put in products and we get really adapted and adjusted to having those features. They become necessary, right? So we went to Hungary and all of a sudden it's gone, right? You're in a strange city in places you don't know where you find the nearest cab. Did you actually know too, they require that you don't just grab one off the street. You have to go in and have someone get one that's assigned to you. It doesn't have a number or anything. So now it's raining and you're knocking on all the doors to figure out which taxi's yours and matching you to a taxi, right? Totally different user experience when you're used to instantaneous rideshare, right? That's like stepping backwards 15 years, right? For a lot of us. Same things if we think about other products. So pay at the pump. Anyone like that feature where you don't have to go into the gas station, you just take your credit card out, you pay, and you pull away. We get so used to features that if we take those away from our consumers, they'll just change or not leverage or use our products anymore, right? So if they don't have pay at the pump, how many of us would maybe just drive to the next gas station? You're like, I'm not getting out, I'll find another gas station. That's way easier, right? Than having to get out of the car and do all those things. So that's the idea with this as well, is making sure that we understand what consumers need and what their needs and wants are. So why we use this in what we do. It's all about that experience and bringing the layer we need in tech out to the world. So everyone's got Menti up, right? We went to menti.com. We're going to do a warm-up survey. And this will be a good one. Hopefully Jodelle is standing nearby because she's going to have to pass out the rest of the gift bags in a second. But here's going to be your warm-up survey. So the code will come up. All right. And your question, everyone see that? How did we select who received treat bags? Let's get the code. When everyone gets on the internet, it
Go back to the code again, please.
Here, let's see if we can get the code again. It should show at the top. We'll minimize it. Oh. We're testing it on this new. We're using it a non-gen laptop. Here we go. I need the code. Anyone got the code that put it in? Do you guys have it?
Usually it's on there.
Usually is. Here. Here, what we'll do. This is what we'll do. We're going to go back to. We had to use a different laptop. Remember I was telling you about that design flaw? There it is, 981827. So 981827. The new Macs, what they did with them is something kind of unique where if the cable is longer than 25 feet, it won't project the signal. Yeah, isn't that so random? It distributes it too much where you can't boost it to see it up here. All right, so how do we select who received treat bags? You guys see we've got 29 responses so far. Biggest one was random. Let's see if we have the right answer because we have fabulous prizes too. Jodelle, do you see it up there? I don't see it either. Uh-oh. Next time. So keep playing. We will have a winner of a fabulous prize. Jodelle, how do we choose who got treat bags?
I counted every 3.
Every third person, yeah. And some of you I heard were upset. You were like, why didn't I get a treat bag, right? This is the consumer experience because what happens, right, is our perception. So those of you who got a treat bag, what was your perception? Usually we perceive it as, ooh, we're lucky, we're special. Glad I got one, too bad for you, right? It's a positive experience because you're like, yay, for whatever reason, I was picked. Right? And then those of you that weren't have more of a negative perception. Jodelle came up and she's like, some of them are mad. I'm like, it'll be okay. We'll fix it. Just give it a few minutes and we'll fix it. So we are going to fix it. So yay, the good news is you all get a treat bag. Yay! Right? As customers, are we all back to better now? You got a treat bag, right? Perfect. So you're all getting a treat bag. We do that on purpose, though, to demonstrate what happens as consumers to us, right? If we have a positively perceived experience, when we feel included in the product or whatever's happening, versus when we use something that we feel excluded, right? Why is this person getting something I'm not? Right? It's an experience we all have when we interact or engage, right, in different places. So again, the idea being we want to make sure when we're designing products and experiences that we're including the customers and the different types of customers that we have for whatever it is we're building. And they all could be very different. Anyone heard of something called an avatar or a customer persona? Yes. Okay, so we'll talk about those today. Well, that should give you a framework for building your avatars or your personas for your customers. That's what this is about. We want to make sure we reach all those customer personas that are really important to us. So, and we will have more surveys so that you guys will be able to play along. Why do we test products? Yep. Okay, confirm we're meeting what people actually need. Yes. Anything else?
Prevent bugs.
Prevent bugs, issues or defects, right? Say that one again. To deliver what the company's providing? Deliver the service or goods or whatever. We test it to ensure that it meets what the intended use or service is. Yep, all good answers. So what's interesting is they do, anyone heard of this World Quality Report? No? It's a report that comes out that surveys organizations across the world and asks them what's most important to companies. So what we know for the first time ever, the survey is done every 2 years across the globe, where they go out and ask the same set of questions and poll into organizations. For the first time ever, the reason for why we test software, or what our intended goal in testing software, has changed. It used to be that the intended goal primarily for most organizations in testing software was finding defects. That was their number one purpose. We've now shifted in the digital era of where we sit for digital transformation in organizations and basically the monetization of IT, in that everyone wants to now focus on end user satisfaction, right? End user satisfaction just eked out those defects barely, as you can see, 5.81 versus 5.85. So fairly close in numbers, but my guess is next time they do this in 2 years, that number is going to be way higher, right? It's going to be a much bigger gap, because the primary goal now is end user satisfaction. So going to design thinking, why do we want to design for the consumer? Because we build stuff for them. Right? That's what it's all about. You actually could have a defect. I've seen this before in products where something you didn't intend in the specs, if you actually look at the original design specs, the way that it was designed versus the way it was implemented or delivered to the customer didn't end up matching. But when it goes out to the customer, they like it the way it is. So if you go back and you take that out, they get upset because they didn't know it wasn't supposed to be there. Right? They just know what you gave them. You know what the spec looked like. To your point about what are we intending to deliver out to the consumer, they don't know what your design spec looked like. They know what they want to use, right? So end user satisfaction, number one thing now in companies. The other thing we know is that to ensure end user satisfaction, that we no longer can keep up with the amount of change that we are pushing to consumers in terms of our mobile apps, our websites. How many people are doing deploys multiple times a day or at least multiple times a week of new changes? Yeah, and that's going to happen more and more because rapidly the consumer wants updates when they want changes, right? We can't get behind and lag our competitors in changes that we push out to the marketplace. Anyone using fail forward as opposed to revert back in how you fix in your products? Yep, fail forward means if something goes out and it doesn't work, instead of reverting back to an old version, you fix in production. You fail forward. You basically fix the version that's out there versus reverting back to the version that you had previously. This is more and more common as well, where what we're doing is failing forward, where you leave the version in and you just fix it as it is going forward for the consumer so you don't take it down and you don't experience the downtime. But to do these things, that gets us to how do we handle all of this and ensure end user satisfaction. Part of what you're going to see as well is intelligent automation and strategies around artificial intelligence. So besides design thinking, leveraging AI to do some of that heavy lifting on the testing, big trend right now in organizations as well. And again, this is a report that surveys all these companies. It's a free report. So if you go out to World Quality Report, you can see the trends in software and download this report for no cost. They do it every 2 years. And grab it. All right, so digital transformation, this is what's driving a lot of this change. We've heard the term digital transformation. 55% of executives, when they surveyed them again, said that if they don't transform, they expect material impact to their businesses financially, right? Anyone see what's happening in retail lately? Right? Retail's been hit hard. I used to work for Oracle's retail division, and it was interesting to me over 10 years ago when we started to see retail and everyone moving more to the cloud, right? One of the big cloud providers is AWS. Amazon also does some other things like online retail, right? So what was funny is I would watch these retailers move to the cloud for their strategy of how that they were going to manage their businesses. Guess who they were giving all their data to? Amazon. Guess what Amazon then turned around and has started doing to all these retailers? Basically eating them alive. Yeah, so literally they were feeding the beast that would take them out eventually, right? And paying them money to do it. It's so ironic, right? When you think of it that way, I was like, you guys, that seems fairly risky here. But that's what we see, right, is people want access to things when they want it. How many of us like that you just go onto Amazon, you click buy, and then it shows up on your doorstep and you didn't have to do a lot of work, right? Yeah, it's huge. They figured that out. So Amazon transformed while you saw these massive retailers still putting up brick and mortar stores for years and years. They didn't get it. They weren't keeping up with where the consumer was going and what they were wanting. Same thing in the taxi industry, at least in the United States. That was radically disrupted when we brought in rideshare, because you didn't have the taxi industry keeping up with the technology that consumers were going to require. Like, you think about someplace like here. We're at this conference center. There aren't a line of cabs sitting out there waiting for us. So if you need to get from here to somewhere else, it's so much nicer to be able to go on your phone, find someone that's in the area, grab them, and then be able to get where you need to go, right? Versus carrying phone numbers for taxis, calling a taxi, hoping they show up at the right place, and then going. So that's the idea. We're transforming now based on needs, and consumers are wanting more and more. I'll show you a video on it.
Once upon a time, business as usual was often good enough. No more. Where we are going, good enough is dead. In a world where everything is connected, where everything is equally excellent, where performance is reaching perfection, there's only one space left to innovate in: you. Right now, you are a central point in the raging tornado of change fueled by digitization, mobilization, augmentation, disintermediation, automation. Well, the list goes on. Science fiction is becoming science fact. Think about self-driving cars or computers that can learn and think. The way we work will never be the same. The skills we need will be dramatically different. Winning or losing are now happening faster than ever before. So what's your response? How will you discover new opportunities in one of the most transformational times in human history? Are you driving change, or are you being driven by it? Disruption has become the new normal. With change, it's always gradually, then suddenly, well, things really have stopped happening gradually. This change is exponential. Everything that used to be dumb and disconnected is now wired and intelligent. Cars, cities, ports, farms, even our bodies will be wired with sensors and will talk to each other. These game changes are also combinatorial. They amplify each other, creating a perfect storm of change. Quantum computing fuels big data. The Internet of Things fuels artificial intelligence and deep learning, which fuels robotics. However, anything that cannot be digitized or automated will become extremely valuable. Human-only traits such as creativity, imagination, intuition, emotion, and ethics will be even more important in the future, because machines are very good at simulating, but not at being. Yes, robots and software will do some of our work, but this will allow us to focus on things that cannot be automated. To imagine change squared, you've got to start engaging more with what might be, not just with what is. Immerse yourself in the immediate future, 5 to 7 years out from today. We need to go beyond technology and data to reach human insights and wisdom. Technology represents the how of change, but humans represent the why. The future is about holistic business model. The opportunity is to be liquid, to learn just in time, not just in case, not single improvements, but complete transformations, not individual systems, but new ecosystems. Humanity is where true and lasting value is created. We will engage, relate, and buy things because of the experiences they provide, because of their transformative power. The future doesn't just happen. The future gets happened. The new way to work is to embrace technology, but not to become it. The future is in technology, yet the bigger future lies in transcending it. Let's live and lead from here.
All right. So see how design thinking plays in. We have to imagine this future for our consumers 5 to 7 years out or more for some of you, of what do they need and want? What is the ecosystem? People engage not just in products, but in experiences, right? It's part of the experience of it. Anyone know what took longer, the design of the iPhone or the packaging it went in the first time it was built? The design. So when you look at the why, so if you read Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, he talks about Apple starts with the why, not the what. A lot of us in companies talk about what we do, right? So if someone asks you, anyone work for State Farm? That's big here. Yep. What do you do, right? We give them the what, but why behind that? Why is State Farm different than USAA or any of the other companies out there that do the same thing, right? People engage with the why. There's many companies usually that can do what you do, but when I choose to engage, I'm engaging on the why, not just the what. Because the what, I can pick 15, 20, 30 different products that I could use or companies to do that. But what changes is the why. So if you think about, some of you carry Android, some of you carry what I call fruit store products or Apple, right? And a lot of people know that if you carry Apple products, usually the reason we do that is they like to stay cutting edge on design. They like to give you new fun features, right, that are in those products, and they change them continually. They're on the bleeding edge. And that's the consumer they go after. Now, other products aren't looking for that, right? They're looking at a different consumer when they go to market. When Apple first came out and said, this is how much we're going to charge for a smartphone, people were like, you're crazy. No one's going to pay that. Anyone seen when the latest one launched? If you went to an Apple store, the lines of people lined up waiting to get a phone that's over $1,200 for some of them, right? That's a massive amount of money for a smartphone when there's many others in the market that are much cheaper, right? But people are willing to pay it because it's about the experience you get with the phone as well. What they wanted was when you opened up that packaging, when you got that phone, that you felt really good. How many of you go out and observe your customers today in the wild? Okay, less than 5, right? So when we design products, part of design thinking is you have to go to where your customers are and see them interacting the way they interact. Anyone work for Target? You can tell me, it's okay. I'm usually safe when I come to Arizona. I'm from Minneapolis, so that's where Target was born, was in Minneapolis. And they're doing really well. Did anyone see their earnings? They're going to reproject their earnings because they actually have come back. They are a company who suffered massive losses because of a huge data breach. Anyone remember their data breach on their chip and pin devices? Yeah. So Target had those chip and pin devices that we started putting in about 5 years after Europe had already implemented. We decided it would probably be a good idea. Those chip and pin devices were manufactured by someone else. They couldn't produce enough of them, so they had to outsource the manufacture of those, had to get another person to help manufacture those devices. They said, don't worry, they're dumb terminals, there's nothing in it. Right? It's just a chip. There's nothing in it. Don't crack it open. Don't do anything with it. Just put them in the stores. They'll be fine. Right? When they cracked those open after the breach, skimming devices were inside all of those that were skimming all the information that went through them. Right? So customer experience, even when they say don't do that, we should probably think about, is that going to be an impact to people, right? And do we have to crack it open and see what's inside of there? Target suffered massively from their breach and is now coming back. But one of the things they started doing, if you look at Target's formats, they've shifted their format. So depending on what state you're in, depending on if you're in a city or if you're more rural, they've changed up how the stores are architected. So there's different formats depending on where those stores are located. So in the city, lots of quick service where you can come in quickly when you're downtown, grab what you need and get right back out. They also put in drive-up features. Anyone use Target's drive-up lately? Awesome feature. Now think about, you guys are lucky. How many of you live in Arizona? Most of you, you're so lucky. We've already had snow in Minneapolis. It's amazing. So now imagine it's, below zero. I know you guys can't imagine this, but it's freezing cold to the point where you go outside, right? And within 5 minutes, you can get frostbite. Like it's that cold where we live sometimes. We had a horribly cold winter last year. And you've got 2 little kids in your car, right? You got, say, a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old. Do you want to take them out into that cold? Probably not. So what Target did is they said, we're going to grab that consumer. We're going to give them an online experience where you basically create an account. You pick out all the things like you would in the store, as long as they weren't perishable, like grocery items. And then you drive up, you tell them when you're at the store, they bring it right out to your car, they load it up and you're out of there. Brilliant, right? For all those people that didn't want to get all of those little children out of that car in that cold winter, or even when it's hot. It gets pretty hot here. You guys have the reverse, right? Like you can fry eggs on your vehicles in the summer. So it gets super hot. So same thing, you're in a nice cool car. You maybe don't want to get out, shut the car off, let it get hot, and then go in and grab your stuff. Same kind of thing, lots of use cases for it. So that's why we're seeing an uptick on Target. They've really looked at what does the consumer want? How do I go to where the consumer needs? And then they observe that consumer. So you'll actually see Target inside their stores observing where people go, what they buy. There's other ways to do it besides just with humans too, but it's nice to have that human engagement and interaction and observe. So part of what you'll see in design thinking and being empathetic is observation. So for those of you that aren't doing it today, part of it's going to be how do you observe in the wild your consumer? Some of us do it through technology. Anyone look at clicks on your website or your apps and stuff like that? That's how we do it today. But that doesn't always tell us why they're abandoning, because you're not watching them abandon. You don't know what went through their head at the moment when they abandoned and didn't go to cart, right? So we need to understand that stuff more by observation. All right, this makes sense so far? Huge disconnect today in the market. So people that figure this out, guess what that means? Lots of opportunity for success for companies that figure this out. The ones that don't, it's going to be a little rough, right? And we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of really successful, traditional, old companies, not like brand new companies, but established companies suffering right now or going out of business. You can name a ton of them right now, right? Anyone remember Toys R Us? They're coming back now. But Jeffrey the Giraffe and the toy store didn't evolve. They had issues, right? Circuit City, gone. Best Buy, verge of extinction. Best Buy almost went that way too, but they pulled it around, just like Target. So you can have a turnaround, but if you're not thinking about these things, you may not. 79% of US e-commerce transactions happen via mobile. People are buying more and more on their phones. They don't even do it on their laptops anymore. This is all about what can I get quick access to on my phone and what can I buy? And if I can do that, right, then I'm going to purchase that way versus any other way. So mobile is huge. Your mobile experience, important right now. That's what that should tell all of us, right? And it's exploding even in developing countries. So when we look at developing countries more like Asia, right? India, part of Asia, Latin America, some countries in Europe that are more remote, this is what we're gonna see explode for them as well, because the cost of those devices is going down, unless you carry Apple. The cost of a lot of those devices is much cheaper. You can provide cell phones and smartphones to people at a much more reasonable cost. The other thing is IT is a given. It used to be, if anyone remembers, people wouldn't consider themselves software companies. Right? If you look 15, 20, 25 years ago, anyone that started their career then, you were whatever you made, right? So maybe you were an insurance company, but you weren't a technology company. Maybe you were a retailer, but you weren't a technology company. Now, how people engage with you is through technology, no matter what business you're in. Even things like tires and automotive and all of that stuff, we engage through websites. We go look at what the products are. We pre-shop stuff, right? Even restaurants, think about how many of you, if you've never been to a restaurant before, go to some place to look for reviews. You're engaging through technology and you've made your buying decision based off of those reviews before you ever step usually into that place. Same thing with most e-commerce. We're making those decisions pre-ever going out there. Now, how many of you look at your reviews on your products, if they're available out there on all the various places, and analyze what's not working for your customer? Yeah, we've got to do that. That's another place. Those reviews are huge. If we're not looking at that, we're not understanding what they're feeling and when they're getting upset. Now, granted, you're always going to have grouchy people, right? We always have people that for whatever reason, they're just not happy with life. But when you analyze that information and look at it in aggregate, you start to see trends and patterns in what consumers are wanting. So IT is important. Investing in technology is important. So businesses need to put money in this space. Everyone now is a software company in some way because you have to engage through technology and software out to consumers today. The other thing we know is that employee engagement, highly important. If your teams don't feel engaged and bought in on the products that they're building, they don't build as good of a product. We want to make sure our teams are engaged and that they're enjoying being a part of the team that they're on, right? We need to turn our employees into those innovation agents because they're going out there, they're seeing what the product looks like, they're using the products themselves. So they have ideas and interest in what they're building and ideas on how to make it better because they're actually using it. So we want to use them to help retain our customers. So what we do know is organizations with over 50% employee engagement retain over 80% of their customers. And you see this every day. We've all had this where you walk into, I've walked into beautiful hotels, like gorgeous properties, where there's not an employee to be found. You're like, okay, where's the people? Like, this is a beautiful hotel. Where's the people that help you do things at the hotel, right? You can't find the front desk people. There's maybe one, right? And there's 10 guests lined up waiting to get into their rooms. They're not staffed appropriately at peak times, right? Those things impact you. And if the employee that you're talking to, you can tell they're tired, they're overworked, they're not happy about what they're doing, you as the consumer feel that. Versus when we go somewhere and we go, wow, this person loves their job, right? And then we love being a part of that. You can tell them, feel the difference. So if you have teams that you know aren't engaged, that are just mailing it in, they're showing up every day, but they're not happy about what they're doing or building, that is going to get out to your consumers. Whether you guys are on the front line of the consumer or not, as you're building it, you're building that in, right? That disgruntledness, that lack of caring, it's being built into the product along with it. Still good so far? Yeah, any questions? No? Okay. Business and technology collaboration is key. This is a big reason we went to more agile teams that had different stakeholders in the teams. We wanted to iterate faster. We didn't want to spend years building a product that we then released that no one cared about or wanted, right? Because we used to do that. Anyone used to be on projects that lasted like 2-3 years. And like by the time you released it, everyone's like, that's not what I wanted anyways, right? And you were millions of dollars in on this deal? Yeah, millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars, lots of times. So that was the whole idea, is let's iterate and let's give them a piece of something. Let's see how it goes and then let's iterate again. Okay, if we like this, let's tweak this, let's do this, but let's do it faster because things change. And then let's engage our business stakeholders and different groups in the organization. UX, product owners, we want to engage the technology folks, the testers, the developers. We want to bring all these stakeholders in because we all sit in a different spot at the table, right? And you see different things depending on which spot you sit in at the table. We have different things we're thinking about, but that broader perspective, really important. So if we're not bringing the right stakeholders in, we're probably not getting the full picture of what the consumer wants either. We want to bring in that broad-based consumer view from all the different stakeholders that observe and see our customers. So Oop. People, process, technology, we always say it, right? We've said it for years and years. This has not changed, right? It's still about we've got to have engaged employees. We have to have people that really love what they do. We have to have a way to understand what our consumers want. So that process piece is what we're focusing on today in design thinking. What is the process to use design thinking to implement a better product for the people that we're building it for, if we all agree we're building this for a consumer and they're the important thing? And then lastly, what are some technology components you need to use to be able to iterate and move as quickly as you need to be successful? So those are the main components, right? We do this. So we're going to talk about today a strategy and process to use design thinking in your team. So let's get that out for you guys. Customer personas and avatars. We're going to give you a sheet to be able to build those personas and avatars for yourself inside your companies if you don't have them. And then looking at AI as well. So how do you leverage AI? Some of you may already be using AI. Business teams usually are first, technology teams are second, but business teams are already doing it. All right, let's see if our code works this time. We'll see. There we go. So here's what you do. So these are going to be so you can see the questions. You actually just put them in over here. Enter the question on the right over there. And then you can tell people how many options they get. Like you could give them 5 or 1 or whatever you want. And then you can choose how you want to show up. If you want to show up as a word cloud or a bar chart or whatever you want to display it as, you can change the format. So these are actually word clouds, these two. And you can see this one is a bar chart. Right? So they'll give us a bar chart if you want to see just levels inside of it. You can do bar charts, you can do word clouds. You can see here, if I scroll down, you can do donuts, you can do pie charts, you can do dots to kind of cluster things. So say you were doing an A/B pilot of, do you like this experience versus this experience in a product? You could do A/B piloting on it and use clustering to see if people prefer A or B or C if you had 3 options. Makes sense so far? But it's pretty cool because you're getting that real-time feedback. That's why you do it, is you start to see where your audience is at as you're doing things. Then when we go into this, all you have to do is, we'll go back. Once you've created that, it takes literally just minutes to create them. So once we go in here, there's this little thing where you can do the voting link. And when you click on it, you just copy here where it says show others the little thing, the hyperlink, and we'll copy this, and then we're just gonna put it into the deck where we were, just because this will make it be correct for you guys. Now what we're gonna do, so in order to get these surveys, what we'll do is we'll just right click on this little guy. We'll go to the hyperlink, we'll open that up. Now this should work, let's see theoretically. There we go. 96, 95, 22, it's working. Beautiful. Can you guys see that? You see it starting to move? All right, so this is asking you what your level of knowledge of design thinking is. So if we'll let you guys put them in, this is why this is important though. I wanted to get this because I know kind of how to gauge the rest of the content for you guys once I know this. So we've got 16 novices. We've got 8 people that are saying, I kind of know some stuff. 2 really smart people on it. Our proficient people, I might pick on you. The rest of you, you're good. So we've got 20 people that are novice, 9 intermediates, and 2 proficients. Our proficient people, you don't have to tell me, but are you okay telling me? Yes? And
I'd say somewhere between intermediate.
okay, so our 2 folks over here, perfect. So you guys are using it every day in your organizations. Do you mind telling us what companies you work with?
Yeah, I'm a product designer at Integrate, local startup here.
Local startup. Okay, so I'm not surprised. And
Design strategist for Vanguard.
Vanguard? Okay, cool. So Vanguard and a startup. Lots of startups have to use this because you have to be intimately involved with what you're building to make sure you're building something people want because it's brand new. It's not out there yet. So we'll start with some basics, but then some of the expert people, if you need some help, we'll call on them too for some advice. We're in business now, but did everyone see how easy it is to use this? So it's super easy to create and use inside your meetings. You get another one. What are the largest quality gaps or problems that you encounter in your products? Activate. Did it work for you guys? Ah. There we go. Yeah. Now is it working? Yep. Okay, cool. Now you get to see. Now this is a word cloud. This is more like what we did before when we asked, how do we decide who got treat bags, right? So now this is cool. You can start to see consensus out of the room of what people are finding as gaps or problems in your products. So let's look at what we're getting. So requirements, yep. And again, design thinking, what we want to do is drive requirements off of our customers. So what do our customers actually want? What are the things that are important to them? Just every time I feel like I go into this one airline, they've shifted everything. And I'm like, I just got used to what you did before. And I was, yeah. So that's the thing too. Like, how often do you change it on a consumer? Because they'll get frustrated too if you're continually changing their user interface and they're having to relearn and redo everything again. So requirements still seems to be a big one for most of you. Word clouds, you can tell the largest words are the things that had more responses. So the bigger the word, the more responses we had. So lots of different issues. You get one more. Last one. What makes you loyal to a product or a brand? What makes you loyal to a product or a brand? Quality, yep. Experience, consistency, price, ease of use, innovation, yep. So now these are all things that what we need to do is make sure that we take these into account too, right? So when you're thinking about your design, not only do we want to think about the things that are important for usage, but what's going to make someone stick with that product versus another one, especially if you have a lot of competitors in the space that you're in where people can choose. Right? If there's a lot of choice out there, people are going to rotate and people are becoming less and less loyal depending on what space it's in particular, right? Like banks. Anyone in banking? I'm sure we have some banks in here. Yeah. People used to be violently loyal to their banks. They would go in, stick with them, and never move. Now you charge someone a fee when they didn't expect it, and they'll go, I'm taking all my money, and they'll move it, right? Like, I mean, it can be something as simple as that where they're like, and I'm done with you forever, right? And it's funny, we all do it if we think about it. I had that experience, like Lyft and Uber, right? We've got choices. We have Lyft and Uber, and I'm sure if I asked you, some of you would say, I use Lyft because of X. And sometimes the reasons aren't even just the product, right? Because Lyft and Uber can have very similar features, very similar user experience, very similar everything, but one of you has a better brand image than, and I'm not telling you which one. One of you has a better brand image around how you treat your employees, your drivers, your customers. Which one do you use? When everything else comes equal, then what do you go to? Which brand do you feel more aligned to? Which one is more like you as the consumer? So the other thing we have to watch when we do products is what is going to make someone loyal? And it could not just be the product, it could actually be around what is the brand and what's the brand messaging. So your marketing people who are doing all of that need to make sure that the messaging, the stuff out in the market is consistent to brand and that you know who you're targeting, right? In terms of your market and who's gonna buy that product. Because we will shift based on if we don't see it aligning to us, right? I won't tell you which one, but I had both rideshare apps and recently deleted one. I was like, and you're done. Right? You know, and thousands and thousands of dollars a month because I go a lot of places and I deleted it. I was just like, and you're done. Because I had a bad experience with them after years. It was a horrible experience. And they failed to deliver on the customer service aspect and it's over. So when you're looking at products, it's not just, again, the product, but are you watching the entire customer service experience? Because what could be hurting you on the technology side is actually not just a technology problem, it's a problem somewhere in the stream of service to the customer. So if your customer service agents who actually are answering the phones or doing the other things are turning off customers, that's impacting you from a technology standpoint too. So that's a piece to look at that I don't know how many of us do, but you have to look at the whole value stream, right? So it's value stream analysis of idea to implementation, looking at all those value streams. Make sense? Okay. So now that we know this, we know that we have to look at things besides just the product itself. All right. There we go. So transformation, we know all of us are in a state where we have to transform and do things differently than the way we've done it before. One of you listed as a problem, vision. So if these 8 attributes, if you're in a company that's trying to transform to keep up with the new digital era, these are what they're saying you have to have in order to do that. So the 8 attributes we need to be able to transform, starting with vision. What do we want to be? That's that vision, that foresight to envision the future. We have to have a vision. The next thing is a human-centered culture, right? So that's all about your employee engagement. Are your employees engaged? Do they want to be part of this transformation? Do they believe in the product you're building? Do we care about our people? Do we take care of them? Right? When you look at companies like Google, guess what? Some people at Google, what they pay for their benefits is $0 a month. Why? Because if you're not worried about how much your healthcare costs and you can just come to work and do the things they want you to do, a lot better, right? You're not worried about that. And then you know you have good healthcare when you need it? Perfect. Some people maybe pay $15 a month because they want really good healthcare, right? But the idea is human-centered cultures in transformation are what stay. The other thing we know, tech unemployment is at an all-time low. If you're skilled in technology, because most companies now are technology companies in some way, it's hard to find good people and retain them. So you have to take care of the ones you got, right? Especially if you want to keep them. The next thing is good leadership. And leaders at different times in companies need to be different. You look at startups. When startups start, usually from 0 to 20 to 30 million is a certain leader. When they're in rapid growth, then when they hit a certain peak, they're going to shift to a different leader because that's a different type of person that takes you from one stage to another. So Agile Teams, one of the best things I've ever seen start to happen is leadership rotation on projects where, say today, I may lead a project because that's my area of expertise. If I'm in an insurance company and I'm really good at consumer policy and there's a whole project around consumer-driven policies, I may lead that project. But guess what? If another project comes up, it's not me because it's not my area of expertise, and you rotate who actually is in charge. Not believing that just because you're a leader one time means you're a leader always. It's a hard thing for us, right? But leaders can shift depending on what's required in the role that you're performing, and it's different people. The next piece is team of teams. The people that know the most about how to fix the problems are the teams themselves, right? Instead of people that sit farther away. There's actually a chart that says that the people that understand and know most about the problems are the people dealing with them day to day. So when you do design thinking, have you went out and talked to the customer service person that's sitting on the front line that is hamstrung because they can't make decisions and have to ask their boss, right? Those things you need to understand, right? Are people empowered to do their job, and can they effectively make decisions when they need to? Agile was all about, are we self-empowering teams? We need to empower them, not just in words where we say you're empowered to make decisions, but actually letting them make decisions. Which means sometimes, guess what? They're going to mess up. It's going to happen, but that's okay. We learn the most when we actually fail, right? When we don't get it right the first time. Most companies that are highly successful have iterated on the concept multiple times. Like it wasn't the original concept is not what they ended up with. A lot of people always say, I want to be Amazon, right? Like, I want to be Amazon. They're killing it. Did you see they're coming? Ironically, I saw an article that said Amazon's coming out with cashierless grocery stores, like grocery stores where you won't have cashiers, but brick and mortar grocery stores. Like this company that built its brand on no like physical stores is now creating grocery stores. It just blows my mind. But they're like, we're going to take all of you out and then we're going to create one that's better without cashiers. But they're coming out with that. And what you see is Amazon, if you actually ask them, when people say, I want to be like Amazon, Amazon can succeed at an 80% failure rate on their projects. You know why? The top 20 make all their money. So you can experiment with 80%. It can be a massive failure, that experiment that you try. But as long as those 20% are winning, they're making money. How many of you have that? Yep, right. So when we say I want to be like Amazon, be careful because you may not operate like Amazon, right? We can't afford 80% failure. We have to know what our failure rate is that we're okay with. The right talents. Do you have the right people on your teams? One of the big skill sets, how many of you have data scientists or data analysts on your teams? A few of you. Data is the new oil. Data will be the new oil. Oil was the commodity we all traded in. Data is the new oil. You can quote me on that one because it is. If you look at it, why do you think Facebook, all these companies have been collecting all of your data? Because what do you do? And Amazon, what do you do with that data? You know what people are doing. You know what they're buying. You know the consumer trends. You don't have to guess. You have the data to tell you what people want, when they want it, and how they want to engage with it. Data is the new oil. So data scientists and data analysts in your teams, incredibly critical, so you have that information to make informed decisions. Teams that have that are going to see a lot more positive impact as they transform because they'll be able to leverage the data that's available out in the market space. So one of the fastest growing jobs, data scientists in technology, fastest growing. The numbers are going to triple in the next 2 years on how many of them exist. Positive energy. You want people that are engaged, excited, and happy about what they're doing. You want to have an ecosystem. You have to have a way you get things to market. You have to have a structure on how you operate, and then you have to have a plan and a way to go to market. So implementation and action. If we do all those, we can transform. If we don't do some of them, different things happen. So what this chart basically shows is if I have all of them, yay, we've transformed, we're good, right? If I'm missing one, here's what can happen as an example. So if I lack vision, we create confusion. People don't know what they're building, right? Pretty clear. Confusion's the number one step. If I'm lacking that human-centered culture where I don't understand my market and my people don't understand my market, I flop. I'm not going to win, right? We have to be centered around the people. So what this tells you is there's certain things you have to have, and you can look at your own culture and say, because many of us are going through transformation, right? Trying to do things differently, trying to transform to Agile or DevOps or whatever you want to call it. But we're making some kind of change. But you have to say, do I have all the things I need to be successful in it? Otherwise, what we see is failed transformations. And we've all been a part probably of those in different companies where it just doesn't happen, right? It didn't make it. And there's reasons why. Now, what we do know is there's an agility model that we operate in. So companies that they've studied who have had success in transformation and stayed relevant have used this model. This is why they're relevant. So when you look at the big ones that you talk about that have had huge market success, this is what we're seeing. I talked about the data being the oil, right? So business intelligence. They're using business intelligence to make better decisions about what products consumers want and need. They're using big data and analytics to decide when to shift or how to shift. So you layer on top of that intelligence, analytics that tells you recommendations of what do I need to do, right? So I don't just have the data, I have the analysis on it. So think about, anyone work for Dell? No, you're not going to tell me. So Dell, if you go out to their website, there's tons of components you can buy, right? Tons and tons of components. The marketing team had said at one point, we're going to end of life these 10 components because we don't feel like they're being used in our core products. And if you shrink, it's just like a restaurant. If you shrink the menu, you focus on the things you're good at, you focus on certain ones, you can reduce the amount of churn and you increase the quality is the idea, right? Let's cut down the product footprint. Let's focus on the ones we're good at. Well, what they found, it was actually the technology team that said, let's use our business intelligence, and instead of guessing what these 10 products were that the marketing and the business side looked at and said, let's get rid of, they went and layered data science across the purchasing patterns and power of what was going on. So they used AI to go out and grab all of that data, pull it back, and they found out that 3 of those 10 components were used in their top configurations without them understanding. So it would have been massively detrimental to their market had they taken out all 10 of those products. 3 of them needed to stay. Then underlying both those pieces, so once you have the business intelligence and the data, you use design thinking to build the right things for your consumer. So that's the layer we're going to talk about, is the design thinking layer that ties in, right? So I'll give you design thinking, but layering into this, know that you also need a strategy on your business intelligence and your analytics. I'd keep you here for 3 days, but we can't do that. So we're only going to focus on design thinking today. But those other pieces also very critical. So design thinking, small plus big data, and analytics is a hybrid model of what companies who are really successful right now are using to drive product. That's how they're driving their product designs.
A lot of people to use less energy in their homes. How would you go about it? Design thinking is a powerful tool to tackle the unknown. It's a means of going on an expedition without a map, without even knowing the destination, but with the confidence that you'll end up somewhere great. Let's make it tangible with an example that captures the 5 key elements of design thinking. Daylight was given the challenge of getting kids in America to move more to help fight childhood obesity. The project started with an idea. Provide kids with a digital music player that has a motion sensor, then give them rewards based on their activity. But the big question was, would kids really use it? What could make the experience so compelling that they would use it long enough to see the health benefits? Learn from people. We began by talking with kids. We spent time in their homes and schools across the country. We listened to them share their motivations, habits, delights, and frustrations. The research included kids in the mainstream, but also incredibly active kids, and the very sedentary. It turns out that those at the extremes are really good at giving a voice to problems that those in the middle might feel, but have a harder time putting their finger on. Find patterns. We captured our observations on hundreds of Post-it notes and laid them all out to make sense of what we learned. Using informed intuition, we looked for patterns that pointed to opportunities. Daniel said, I get bored with solo video games. It's the multiplayer ones that keep me coming back. Meg said, I don't wear my iPod when I'm running because I want to talk to people. Define design principles. These quotes, along with others, reveal one of the design principles that would help us get to a successful concept. Facilitate social interaction at all times. Many such design principles emerged. Together, they formed the guideposts of an experience that we felt confident would resonate with kids. Made tangible. We asked ourselves how might we questions to bridge the gap from design principles to specific ideas, and then quickly turn the best of them into rough prototypes. Iterate relentlessly. Building physical devices out of simple cardboard and mocking up digital experiences with paper and pencil allowed us to learn quickly. With each prototype, we tweaked and evolved the concept. We brought digital and physical models to kids to listen and learn. The concept evolved until we got to a compelling solution. What we ended up with was not the original idea of a digital music player. It was instead a small activity monitor that kids could clip onto their clothes or slip into a pocket. It was a portal to an online world that allowed kids to share and celebrate their real-world accomplishments with each other and their families. In a 6-month clinical trial, the impact was a 59% increase in physical activity. Learn from people. Find patterns. Define design principles. Make tangible. Iterate relentlessly. Whatever the challenge, design thinking is a powerful tool to reveal new ways of thinking and doing. What in your world could benefit from design thinking?
Is what they started with what they ended up with? No. What they started with was an idea, but when they actually took it to the people and they asked the questions and the kids that it would impact, they figured out there was a good idea, but it wasn't what the consumer needed or wanted in this case to solve the problem. It was a good idea. Sometimes what happens is we think we have great ideas from our marketing teams or other people that do research or whatever, but we need to validate that that's still the right thing and that it makes sense, right? Is it really the right thing? And often what we start with is not what you'll actually build. And you'll iterate on it and it's going to change over time, right? One of the things you have to know if you don't engage people, so the first step we look at is learn from people. There was, in one of the developing countries, they had this idea. They said, and we've all thought it, children are incredibly active, right? They have energy for days. I look at my 4-year-old and I'm like, how are you still moving? You know, he will tell me, Mommy, too early for talking. But by the time he gets rolling, that kid doesn't stop moving. So the idea was use children to generate energy. We've all thought this, right? They're brilliant. Yeah. Use children to generate as a source of energy. And then if you could bottle that energy, store it, and use it later, we could power cities off these kids, right? Like we've all had this idea probably at some point. Well, they actually tried it. So in a country they were looking at, it was a developing country where they needed power. Power was a scarce resource for them. They had a playground. On that playground was one of the circular things that you can get on and it circles around if you push it, right? The kids would push it, jump on, and then go around in circles relentlessly all day long. The scientists looked at that and said, what a fabulous way to collect energy. Because it's a machine, it rotates. If we would keep it rotating, if the children, because they play on it all day long at recess and during the day, if we had a source to actually pull off the energy that rotation is generating, we would then be able to capture it and then use it as energy to power the school, was the idea, right? So they thought, well, brilliant. Here's how we're going to design this and build a model to refine and pull that energy off of the playground equipment. Now, the problem is they never talked to the children and told them what was happening. So they went and they built this beautiful model. So the children went away over the weekend. They came back, and when they came back, their little rotational spinner looked very different. It now had this contraption attached to it, and it was going to be pulling energy off. Guess what happened the first day they put the new design out there and the children saw it? They wouldn't touch it. No rotation. The children were like, I know what you're doing and I'm smarter than you. Right? And they never used it. Right? So that's just to solidify in our minds. We can think we know what a great idea is, but until we socialize it with the people who actually have to use it and be part of the solution or be the consumer, we don't know. And it could change. But I remember when people said, don't hitchhike, right? Anyone ever hear that? Don't get in a stranger's car. How about don't go into a stranger's home, right? Yeah, don't answer the phone if you don't know who's calling, right? That you don't talk to strangers, you don't go into strangers' home, you don't ride in cars with strangers. Guess what? Anyone do any of these things lately? Right? So what are we doing? What are we doing, right? What happened? The difference is data. We now have an app and we go, oh, well, I have an app, so it says this stranger's okay, right? So there's an app with some data in it and we all go, oh yeah, I'm not worried about that anymore, right? Or we do Airbnb and we stay in strangers' homes that we don't even know, right? Just a little bit of data changed how we feel about engaging and interacting with strangers, right? That's what it is. So I just wanted to show you this because I think it's funny when we think about just our mindset shift and how we as consumers have shifted from, oh, bad, stranger, to stranger, okay, I have data on stranger, right? Like now it's better. Or I want to crowdsource to all kinds of strangers to tell me if there's problems on my drive and use ways to rely on people who are going to hopefully give good data into this tool that I'm going to then use to decide what path I'm taking to wherever I'm going. Or anyone use pause? So that little paw print, right? That we actually allow now strangers into our homes to take part of our family members, our furry creatures, and take them for walks, and we hope they bring them back and don't take anything else, right? And then same thing with some of the apps now for Amazon delivery, right? Where we give garage codes or codes to our homes to people and then they leave packages for us. They tried to actually go into your house and leave it in the house. That didn't quite work yet. The data wasn't super good on that one. They were having some issues, right? But it's all around that data. So what kind of data are we leveraging and using? But think about it. These apps rely heavily on consumer data and where people are, what they're doing, how they're engaging with it. Super critical. So you guys have sat for a long time and listened to me. I'm going to have you do a little activity for me before we get into our, personas so that you're energized and ready to go as we get closer to lunch. I'll tell you why we actually did it, because we talk about teams and people and why they're so important besides just the process we use. So everyone have in front of you, there's a bunch of little handouts we gave you, but one of them has a question card. It's like a half sheet and it has a question on the front, and if you flip it over, there's one on the back. Pick whichever one you want. If there's one of them you like and one of them you don't like, pick the one you like better. You're going to stick with it. Okay. Everyone chosen? You selected your question. All right. Your mission in a minute, if you choose to accept it, is to stand up, and I'm going to have you introduce yourself to some other folks in the room and ask them the question on your card. So you're going to ask them the question. Just stick with one of these, and then you will write down the response you get. The idea is that in the next 5 minutes, you meet as many folks in the room as you can, and I'll tell you why. All right, so we will audit. You have to write them down, and then there's a fabulous prize. So you want to say hello, not just ask them the question. And you can ask them where they're from, what they do, whatever you want. But the goal is to get to as many people as you can and ask your question. We will count up how many folks you chatted with, okay? So write down the answer so we know how many answers you got, right? It's not guessing, we need to know. Everyone clear? Any more questions before I let you stand up? All right, you will have 5 minutes when we say go. All right, go. Ready? So we're going to start. I'm going to give you a number, and if you talk to at least this many people, put your hand in the air, and then you keep it in the air, because this is also like yoga for the morning, right? We haven't gotten to move much, so we're going to move. So how many people talk to at least 2 people in this room? Yay, you guys are doing good. We're winning. All right, keep it up. 3, 4, 5, 6. We're losing them. 7. Ooh, we lost a lot on 7. 8, 9. Ooh, we're down to 2, I think, right? Or 2? Yeah, we're down to 2. She's like, I didn't think I talked to that many people. 10. You both had 9. 9? Yeah, we had a tie. Good news is you both get a prize. Yay! And Jodelle will come around, and you'll get to pick Starbucks or Amazon. You had 16? You have 16? Well, you get a prize too. Did no one else had, okay, oh my gosh, 16. Well, she was way, well, I will tell you, so our grand prize winner will call you with 16. folks, she actually was the only person, when you talk about strategies, right? So we watched the video, and usually who do we talk to when we're looking at our consumers, right? Mainstream, this is the typical person that uses our products. But you learn a lot from the people on the high end and the low end, right? That are on the fringe as well about your products. So what's interesting, she was only the only person that actually came up here and asked myself and then Jodelle, because we weren't busy, right? So no one came up here. So she got a couple just by coming up here. So she was the only person that tried that strategy. So that was a good strategy. You were far ahead. You almost doubled them in numbers. So, and also it matters what the question is. So her question, and I know because she asked me, was what quality do you admire most in a leader? Right? So most of us off the top of our head know what we think about that. Some of you had harder questions. I don't know if anyone had if you were in the Olympics, what sport would you be in? Or what tree would you be? Like, those are harder. Like, every day I don't think about what tree would I be if I'd be a tree, right? So, but why we actually do this. So we have our fabulous prize winners, and congratulations, you guys. I'll tell you in a second, but does anyone notice anything different about the room? More energy? Feel better? Feel like we know people better? We're not just a group of strangers that are sitting here. You've at least met a few of the folks. Yeah, exactly. So there's actually a business benefit that they've proven. So what we know about this is better connected teams outperform other teams in tasks by 3 times. So they've done studies where they take groups of people, they put them into groups, they give them all the same task. We maybe have even done this in our teams, those team building activities where they give you these random things and they're like, make a snowman out of pretzel sticks and marshmallows, right? And you come together as a team to try and do that. Or assemble a race car with these parts that you get, and it's like these random things, right? So what they did was they did one of those activities with teams, and they took people who just met. Like they'd never met each other before, they didn't know what each other did or what they were about or even what their jobs normally were or what their skill sets were. Then they took people that had been formed and as a team for many years and had worked closely together. And then they took people kind of in the middle who'd been together a couple of months. And then they took some teams that were about 6 to 12 months in that range. And they looked at how quickly they were able to accomplish the same task, right, with these teams. And what we find is if we know each other, we know when to rely on someone, when to ask questions, when to say, hey, I just don't know and I need some help, and we're comfortable doing that. If we're more connected in that way, it actually speeds our ability to deliver. So what you also see besides design thinking in teams that are highly successful using these strategies is they have highly connected, evolved teams working together. So it's something else for all of you to think about is how connected are the teams that you're working in? Do they feel like they know each other? And I say that because we do a lot of different projects with a lot of different organizations. And one of the things I noticed one time, just as an experiment, because I try lots of experiments, but we were working on a low-level implanted device for a med device company. So anyone who has diabetes or knows kids with who are diabetic, they used to have to prick their finger all the time to check their blood sugar levels. So this device we were working on was a low-level implant for children in particular where they would no longer have to do that. Because as a child, they're not as attuned to their body and understanding when they're in trouble or if something bad could happen with their blood sugar. So the device goes low level. They have an app that's tied to their teacher, their parent, any key individual for that child. So there's the low-level implant, there's a sensor, there is a transmitter that gets the information off the implant, transmits it, goes to a mobile app and a website, right? So we were working on this and how do you design it and then ensure that you can get all the data and secure it and all privacy, all of those components. We were talking to 2 of the engineers. We'd worked with these engineers for 6 months. We said, here's what we think the plan is. We whiteboarded it out, we talked about it, right? And as the engineers were about to walk out and go do what they needed to do on this, I just thought, oh, you know what, this is super complicated. I'm just gonna ask what we're gonna do, right? So I looked at the first engineer and I said, hey, just for my benefit, before you go back out there and start working on this, what are you gonna do when you get back to your desk? What are you thinking? And he goes, and he stared at his feet and Being that I have 2 children, I'm like, this is not a good sign. Usually when they stare at their feet, that means I'm looking for something and I don't know where it is and I'm not sure what I'm going to say. Or do I just tell you the truth and be like, I have no idea. So then he goes, you know what, honestly, I don't know. And I said, oh, fair, clear, got it. So I looked at the other one and I said, so what are you going to do when you go back to your desk? Just check in. Are we all good? Do you know exactly what we talked about and what your role is and what you're going to go do when you go out there? And he looked at me and goes, I got to be honest, I have no idea. Right? And had I just let them go, both of them probably would have went, and I've known them for 6 months, but they were afraid to ask and be like, hey, I'm not super clear right now. What do I need to do? They were going to go sit at their desk, try and figure it out for X number of hours, probably at some point come back to me and be like, hey, I have no idea what's going on. Let's meet about this again, hopefully, right? If it wasn't the next day, and we wouldn't lose a whole day on it. But that's the idea. Even when we think we're connected, we want to have that type of environment where someone goes before they leave, hey, I get that we've whiteboarded it. I'm still really confused about what I need to do or how we do this or why we're doing this. I mean, any of those things, right? We want to encourage teams where that level of collaboration and connectedness exists. So we can implement Agile, we can put cool tools in, we can use design thinking, all the stuff, but we also got to connect the people. Right? And make sure they're comfortable with each other, that they know where to go, how to get information, what everyone's good at, all of that piece. So there's actually a business benefit to focusing on people and connection as well as tools and processes. So hopefully this helps solidify that in your heads of another component that can sometimes get missed. Make sense? Yeah, that's why we did it. So while I flip back, Jodel's going to do a commercial speaking of connected, because one of the things we do this, anyone, is this your first time at Agile Arizona? How many people have you have been before? How many are brand new? Yeah, lots of you, lots of new people. This is my 2nd year, I believe, that I've been at this. But one of the biggest benefits of why we do a lot of events and conferences is meeting people and doing exactly what we talk about in our classes and design thinking of just engaging with humans and understanding what people are doing. So the connected piece is really important to us. So we try and encourage things that connect all of us together and encourage that collaboration. I have people that I met at a conference that it's 12 years later and they're still people I call to ask questions or bounce ideas off of. Those are great resources for all of us, besides just coming and hearing content, is networking and connecting with other people who are having similar challenges. So you're not trying to do it on your own, right? And you have that group of people to reach out to for ideas and just things to bounce off of. So we do a lot of trying to connect people at these types of events live, because you don't get that every day. You get all the people that work with you, but not new people that are injected into that. So back to design thinking, right? So learn from people, find patterns, design principles, make it tangible, and iterate relentlessly. That's what we were talking about before we took our break, right? So the design imagine process. So how we look at this. First, we have to discover. So the first piece of the design imagine process that I leverage, and you can use different ones, is the discovery process. And we'll go into each of these individually and kind of explore them. But the first piece you're going to do is discover. Inside discover, there's pain, there's understanding, there's observing, and that data piece. Then once we get through that piece, we're ready to move on to the create. And in create, what we're doing is defining and ideating, which just means we're coming up with all the possibilities. So you saw him doing it in the video with all those stickies. You may even have different teams who are ideating on the same thing, but the dynamic of those teams may come up with different ideas. So even though it's the same thing, different teams may see different things. So you may break into 4 or 5 teams to do the create process and ideate process. So this kind of looks like anyone that's ever seen some of those science fairs or those things where you go, come up with new ideas, and different teams go off and work on what they think would be helpful or how to deliver on a process. So a lot of the firms that do this for a living, there are whole firms that all they do is design thinking and building product, right? So they help with ideas around how to build new products. This is the processes they're using as well. Then the last piece is deliver. So once you've gone through discovery and create, what we want to do is deliver, and how we do that is various prototypes. You also saw this in the video where they talked about, they came up with mock-ups or prototypes. Those can be fairly thought out, they can be wireframes, you know, there's different mechanisms of creating prototypes, but they don't have to be fully fleshed out. The idea is just something so you get a feel for how it'll actually work before you fully build. And then in that deliver piece, after you come up with prototypes, you test it to prove out, is it doing what I thought it would and meeting the values that we discovered when we were doing the discovery phase? And then you realize those things, and that's what you end up delivering, right? So that's the piece that ends up going out, is once you come through those 3 phases. So we'll break them down so we can start with, you know, the first piece. So first piece, and again, we saw this part in the video, was pain. What is the pain point? So the pain in the video was around childhood obesity. There was a problem we are trying to solve. So for some of us, when we're looking at products, if it's an already existing product that's in the market, there may still be some pain around it. So we saw, anyone have the latest iPhone? Yep. What was the pain that they solved in that version of the phone? Anyone know? Camera. So the camera got updated, because what was happening is low light pictures. Anyone ever go to stuff and they tell you turn off the flash and you get frustrated because you're like, but then I can't get my pictures. So now the camera has 3 different cameras in one, right? So there's 3 different pieces that go together that then pull the best version out of the 3 instead of just the original camera that they had. The other piece that people are frustrated about, when you have a $1,200 phone and you drop it on the ground and the screen cracks, that's pretty frustrating, right? So can you make it more durable, right? Things like that. So with each version, you're trying to solve different pain and understanding what the consumer wants and needs in the new versions that come out. For certain things, it could be battery life. Battery life was a huge problem in smartphones for a long time, because you're draining that battery as you're multitasking, putting all these apps on it, all of that. Idea being, clearly define what problem are you trying to solve, or what is the pain that you're addressing, right? And how you do this is different ways. So how we can do pain and understanding is we can come up with it and think we know what it is, or you can do what they did in the video, which is going out and interviewing real live consumers to get information and data on what they're doing. The other way we can do it is through our personas or our avatars. Lots of companies have personas and avatars that they use every day to understand their market and their consumer. Right? Who uses my product? What do they look like? But what's really important in this phase is clearly define pain. And once you know what that is, understand commonly across the team of whoever's creating what you're trying to do. So understanding the definition of the problem. Do we all understand the problem in the same way? We use a lot of words, but sometimes our definitions don't match. So what's important here is even the word agile. If I said, are you agile? And you could say yes, no, or maybe. If I dug into it, your definition of agile would probably be very different than your definition and your definition for how it looks in your team. So what you want to do is have that common, really detailed understanding of defining the problem and the challenge you're trying to solve. And when you're designing the software, what is the problem I'm trying to solve in this design, right? So even before, this is hard, but did you see it in the video? We don't need a roadmap and we don't need to know where we're going. Sometimes we go too far to this is what I want to build instead of starting with what's my pain. So this throws all that out, okay? I know that's crazy, right? Are you all having hives? You're like, but we need requirements. No, first you need to understand the consumer and the pain. Throw all that out. Like if you don't understand that and you've got a pile of requirements, that's challenging, right? So first with this process, we throw all that out and we start with pain. Then we understand the people, right? And then once we've got those 2 pieces, this is where that data piece comes in, right? We have to observe and see what we think we're solving. So I'll give you an example. Shopping carts. Okay, may sound silly, but all of us have used a shopping cart before, right? Those plastic things, and you know, everyone touches them and they're all icky and stuff like that, right? So one of the challenges a design firm had was to reinvent and redesign the shopping cart. So they put 4 teams on it of groups of people to come up with prototypes and ideas. So instead of 1 team, they set out 4 teams. Because again, these teams are made up of different people who have a different understanding of the problem. When they actually came back, right, so everyone went through this phase as a team. The 4 teams did it. They pulled all that back together though, right? So they did it independently, but you pull it back together to make sure before you exit this design, this phase of discover, that you all have a common understanding, okay? So you can do it independently, but you have to pull it back together to focus on what your goals are and make them consistent across the various teams. So they cannot, if you want to do 2 teams or 3 teams in your software teams, whatever you want, but come back together at the end of each phase and level set, are we all on the same page? So what they then do is they look at the data and the insights and do deep insights and discovery on, did we observe and see really what the customer needs or wants in this scenario? Different people will look at the data differently. That's why having more than 1 team isn't a bad idea, to take a look at it and come back. Exiting this phase, what we know is what our pain is, common understanding of pain. We understand what problem we're trying to solve or design challenge we're solving, and we've done some observation and mining of data. We've extracted data to get deep insights from it. So that entails you have some data. That could be, we've looked at clicks through the website. We've looked at our abandonment rate if it's a website. We've looked at different pieces of data to drive where we think we are. Those can come from different things, okay? Everyone with me so far as you get to this piece? Now the next piece we do after this is once we've gone through discover and we've aligned on discover, we move into create. And here what we're doing is 2 things. Combining our deep insights and deep learning and defining our point of view on the problem, right? We're creating our point of view that we're going to take on this problem. So again, right now, we're just creating that point of view. We've got all of our stickies that we've narrowed down to this is our view of the problem that we're addressing, right? So now we've got a clear vision. We all understand exactly what our goal is, okay? We are building a shopping cart to serve these types of things as an example. And then what we do from there, once we have that clear understanding, and we've defined it and everyone has the stickies that we're going to use, we send those same team or teams back out to create and ideate, right? So now I'm going to come up with ways that I could potentially solve this. This is that development summary of here's how I think I'm actually going to tackle it and the evaluation of the possibilities. You want lots of ideas at this stage. That's why multiple teams tackling this may come back with more ideas. So this phase, ideate, depending on what it is, could last a couple days, right? Because sometimes, have you ever had this? You think about a problem, you go home and you sleep on it, and the next day you're out running or doing something else, taking a walk, and you see it differently, right? So you want to come back with as many ideas as you can at this phase. So this is, again, letting those teams go off, creating all the possibilities, all the stickies. What we don't want to do is constrain. Naturally, sometimes we think constraint. That's too expensive. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the whatever. This can't be a constrained version at this point. Unconstrained. Wild, crazy things can come out of the ideate phase, right? Let people do that without constraining them. A lot of times what happens when we brainstorm out loud, if you've ever seen it, is certain people are very vocal, other people say nothing. So when you ideate in your organization or culture, doing that through sticky notes or other mechanisms may be really important for you so you get all the ideas out and it's not a single voice either. So know your organization and what your structure works best for you. This is when I say bring in some of those tools too. So if you want to ideate using Poll Anywhere or Mentimeter or whatever, where people are just thinking and throwing out ideas and you give them 10 options of ideas to solve and create, let them do it that way. If you want to use shared drives and Google Drives where everyone goes off on their own and does it, if you want to do it as a group in a 4 or 5 team person where you go and do it all together and think about it, you'll know what fits your culture, but there's different ways to do this. The idea is unconstrained at this point when we create. Okay? Yes?
But really, is it fair to say that you're constrained by the customer need in order to accomplish?
Yes, you want it to fit the need. So don't go off. You've already got that common understanding. That is your common understanding. But as long as you're solving that common understanding, you don't want to constrain.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want people building instead of a shopping cart, they're building autonomous vehicles, right? So nope, we're building the shopping cart. That's great, but not this project, right? Put them on a different project. But yes, so you have to stick with common, and then you ideate off that common. Make sense so far? Okay. All right, next piece, deliver. So then what do? Once we've created, we want to be able to deliver. Whoop. So here is where we start the prototypes. So what's going to happen is you exit the phase I just talked about in the ideate. However you want to do it, but what you need to do is take all those ideas you got unconstrained, and a lot of teams, what they do at this phase is a voting mechanism. Vote for your top 3 that you think are the best ways to solve the problem, right? Where everyone gets 3 votes on the options or the possibilities. And the team gets to pick the top 3. Because you're gonna have to narrow to get to the next phase here. You can't do all of them, right? So what you wanna do before you go into prototyping and modeling is determine how many prototypes or models make sense based on what works for your team. In some cases, it's 1 or 2, usually at least 2, so you have various models to look at. I would always recommend at least having 2. I like 3 personally, but it's whatever you can handle in terms of number of prototypes that you could do. Okay? So in this, but as you exit that last phase, use whatever mechanism. Voting is one of them, stack ranking, anonymous voting, so people are, sometimes people are influenced by others. One thing I have seen, just social influence, if you've ever seen this, if you do that stack ranking in a meeting where everyone's in it and people physically put their votes against different ideas, and you see like 25 votes going to one idea and none on another yet, but there's still a lot of people left to vote, right? It's just kind of like elections or anything else. If you see the polls coming in, some people go, I'm not even bothering to go because it's like sunk. My vote doesn't count, right? But it does, because when you think about it, if you're giving people 3 votes and if 10 people still haven't voted, and they could put all 3 on one idea, and so could the other 10, and that one could win. So be careful of that, where you're not influencing the vote by people visually seeing where people are shifting. You really want every individual to be in their own view of the problem that you've already defined on how the best way to solve it. Make sense? You don't want to be socially influenced by other people on the team artificially. That's the biggest hurdle I see, is artificial influence by other people on the team when you're voting to get to the top ones. Then you have to decide how many prototypes. So as you go into deliver, you've now decided we're going to do 3, or we're going to do 2, or we're going to do 5, whatever it is you think you can feasibly handle at this point to prototype. Now these are those experiments you're trying of different things. So this is experimenting with visualization of models that you want to use. So when they did it with the kids, they were making mock-ups of what it would look like, right? So different versions of what the mock-up would look like that you would be using. So it could be wireframes if it's software. It could be just designs on paper where you're showing the flow. It could be you actually do some low-level coding to go through it. It could be just a deck with a PowerPoint that just shows how it goes through. It could be an infographic. There's a lot of tools out there right now where you can model using infographics to show the flow or the picture. It could be any of the visual tools that are out there. So different ways to do modeling and prototyping depending on if it's a physical thing that you're building or if it's software or websites, that type of stuff. Different depending on what it is that you're building. But that's where you would go off. You would have teams. You would assign each team to one of those prototypes. So how you assign teams usually is by, again, we talked about really important that people are aligned to whatever they're working on. So if people feel strongly that they voted for one of those ideas, aligning them as much as you can around the idea that they're most passionate about. So they're on the team, it sounds silly, but they're on the team that they care about that prototype. That's what you want, ideally. So letting people make those choices, but still distributing the team. Once the team's built the prototype, you want them to test it out in the wild as best they can. So interviews with different consumers, potentially interviews with mock consumers. So a lot of organizations will do this once you have your personas, and we'll talk about those in a second, how to do those. But once you have your personas, you may have even different people in your organization who, when you test it, they test as that persona. They know that that's what they are. Anyone in a video game company? You're not going to tell me. I know. Maybe no one. So video games, we work with them a lot. So one of the things with video games is, I don't know if you know this, but they do brand new player. Someone who's never seen the game before. So they'll give it to someone who's never seen it, and they have to go in and operate as someone who's never seen it before. Then they give it to someone who's been playing for certain amount of time, a little bit of time, and have them operate as that type of consumer. Then they have someone go in who's a pretty good player, experienced, been playing for years, but not professional level. And then they have pros try it. Got all the people that you need in that, and understanding how many people sit in each of those demographics. What percentage is each of your personas or avatars of your consumers? Data. Knowing that is important. And then once you exit the test, you'll come back as a team, you'll show what the prototype was, and you'll present back the data and the findings that you had on your personas for your prototypes and where you think they can be evolved. Now, what usually happens in this phase when you bring it back together with the multiple teams is it's not exactly one of those that wins. It's one of those with some tweaks or combinations of the other prototypes you did, where it's a combination of these. Instead of just one team came up with exactly what you needed, you take and borrow bits and pieces from other prototypes to make the final one that you're going to use. When you realize it, you put it out there, you implement it, but know you're going to iterate. Because once you put it out, you're going to find more data and information and then go back through and iterate to get it to where you want it to be. Right? It's a continual iteration process with it. So the requirements and all that stuff are continually evolving based on data from the consumer, not just based on ticking the box on the requirements that you had, because we threw those out in the beginning.
So you talked about involving brand new, experienced, and expert users for these type of labels. What about haters?
Oh, people that don't like the product at all? Yeah, I mean, one thing you have to know is why people don't like it. Are they haters because they don't use it? Like they just don't like the brand? Or is there really something valuable out of that, like the experience that they're not getting? Or is that a consumer group you don't want to serve? In some brands, there are people that don't like the brand, but you're not pleasing all people. You have a very distinct market that you want to go for. So it depends on what kind of hater you're dealing with.
How easy is it to find the haters and involve them in the process?
How easy is it to find them? So one of the ways that we do it is actually leveraging the sites where you can put data and information out, and we pull those sites. So anything this is a good use, and we'll get into this briefly, is just artificial intelligence is really good at scanning any public sites, grabbing point of view, or I call it perspective of the customer, or sentiment. So you can do sentiment using AI, where you grab all the sentiment, pull it back, and you get groupings of sentiment around where you're at. But that's a good way to get it and say, is that a market we're trying to serve, or is that just not even part of our demographic? So they're not happy, but they're not our people, right? That's not the people we want in our product. Make sense?
One way to kind of think through this whole process that we use, it helps me a lot, is thinking of each step that you move into as divergent, then convergent, then iterate.
Yes.
And then just repeat it.
Love it. Yep.
Just keep repeating that over.
Yep. Go out, diverge, go get information, data, come back, converge, figure it out, and then agree, right? And then try it out, and then you're going to go back. Yep. It's continually iterating on it. Yep. I like that. That's really good. Anything else?
No, I agree with that.
Okay. Yay, good. All right, so let's do this. We're gonna go deep dive, so we didn't have all day. So we're gonna focus on personas, because personas are really important in my mind, or avatars, to understand, to underlie what we're trying to do, because you have to understand your peeps and who your consumers are. So we're gonna do one more poll. This is your last poll of the day. And here's the code. We tested this, so it should work. 703681. 703681. See if it pulls up. Did it work? It should ask you, do you use personas or avatars? 703681, minty.com. Now here's an interesting quote to the question we just had. I thought this was interesting. You don't just accept who you find, you choose who to attract. Right? So not just taking everyone, you consciously choose through your personas and avatars who you're attracting to your software, your product, your company, whatever, right? So don't just accept, actually actively choose. A lot of companies going through transformation right now and who are seeing disruption are trying to refine who they're choosing to bring in. I'll give you an example. There's a mid-sized bank that was struggling with all things to all people. They're a bank, so you would say, well, doesn't every bank want every customer? And because they were trying to be all things to all people, instead of consciously focusing on personas and avatars that made sense to them, they're losing to the big guys. They're losing to Amazon and other people entering the market now in fintech that weren't in there before. Apple came out with a credit card, right? Like everyone's getting in this space. So what they realized was, instead of being all things to all people, they had to choose two market segments and then laser focus on those two segments and understand them and fit the need, right? So if I focus on farmers, for example, how do I delight farmers in the banking business? Do I help understanding how to make loans more accessible for them when they have good years and bad years? Do I facilitate understanding crop cycles and what's happening in that market? Do I understand how they need to invest for their retirement or passing down assets? Because their asset doesn't just go away. Someone has to do something with it at some point, right? So you kind of get the idea. They had to say, these are the two markets I'm focusing on, build the personas and the avatars around those two markets instead of attracting all things. Now they may get people that are outside of that, that's fine, but they consciously are building the product around those two personas.
I heard a great saying, you know you have a strategy when you can say no.
Yes. Yes, because you know, no, that's not, it's not in it. If you always say yes, then exactly, yeah. You don't just accept, you attract, and who you choose to attract is important. So let's look at what we got for our results. 50% of you said sometimes, just so you know. So 50% said sometimes we use them. We had 8% say, what is that? That we're like, what are we talking about? What are you doing? We only had 6% say all the time. And we had 31% say not at all. So if you just take the 50 and the 31, we've got a vast majority, 81% of people in the room that aren't really using them on a regular basis at all. Well, and then let's add in our 8, right? Because they don't even, if you don't know what it is, we're not doing it, right? So 90%, so a good chunk of us aren't leveraging this on a consistent basis. So this goes a long way to starting the process as a foundational element to design thinking. Because how do you design if you don't understand who your people are you're designing for? That's fundamental. That's why this piece is important to us. So good thing to know, because this means this makes sense to focus on this. All right, so what is it? For those of you that are like, what is this? So this is a detailed profile of your ideal customer. This is detailed on what is my ideal customer. It doesn't make assumptions or categories into groups. It's just a detailed profile. The avatar focuses on one persona and outlines everything about that persona, right? So we want to know everything we can. So we're going to take an example. The Urban Cake Shop. The Urban Cake Shop, one of their personas is wedding customers, right? They make cupcakes and cakes for wedding customers. So when they look at that persona, they give it a name. So for this persona, its name is Becky. Becky's 32. It could be, I know some retailers that use, one of their personas is soccer mom, right? So you can just imagine, it doesn't have to be Becky, it can be whatever you want it to be. But in this case, it's Becky. Becky's just inside her 30s. She's a young professional looking for a wedding cake her guests will remember, right? Other interesting fact for people in this, they have to look at the demographic. People used to get married younger. So their mainstream customer of wedding cakes previously, if you look 20, 30 years ago, was much younger. Now, the actual age of that customer has shifted. And with that age shift comes a lot of other shifts in where they're at in life, right? If you were 21, 22, just coming out of college, you maybe weren't paying for the wedding cake. There maybe was a parent or someone else helping pay for the wedding cake. Now it could be a young professional who's made their money, and while they may be getting help or got a check, they're deciding and it's their money. So different way they may look at that purchase than when it was someone else. What she's motivated by. So it's a description of what your persona is. Then you want to know what motivates them. So she wants unique flavors and designs, attentive customer service, and she wants ease, right? So this customer wants, I want it to be easy to engage with. And then preferred marketing channels. How do we reach this person? How do we know even where they are, and how do I engage with them? So this gives you email, Facebook, Pinterest. These are the ones they came up with. This is just an example. So all of you should have a sheet that looks like this. One of these sheets. Now, use whatever you want, but here's how I do it. And you can do it differently. There's different methods, but this one I find useful. Everyone get one? Anyone need one? We need one. Jodelle, okay, so here's what it is. It starts with the name of the profile. So this would be your Becky, right? It could be whatever, you know, experienced gamer, novice gamer, whatever we want. And then we go into demographics. Like, what do we know about this person? What's the typical age range of this customer? Age makes a difference depending on where they're at. Typically, where do they live? Are they in the city? Are they in the suburbs? Where are we looking at them? Race or ethnic origin. Do we have any certain demographics that we're attracting certain individuals based on that? Then part 2, once we get their demographics, we go into sociographics. So sociographics and socioeconomic attributes. So these are going to be things socioeconomically about this consumer. So this is related to income, education, occupation, going more into their associations, memberships. Whose opinions do they value, right, in their social circles? So for some people, you want to influence in very certain places because that's where they're looking for information, right? So it could be my consumer is the soccer mom or the athletic mom who has kids who are in athletics. Where does she go to get information on what products they're using or what things her peers are doing, right? Then the next piece is the psychographics. So you'll see that on page 2, partway down is psychographic questions. You can drill down into those. Then the next part, the last one, is how you actually then, once you've accumulated these 3 types of graphics on your person, your demographics, your sociographics, and your psychographics, how you actually start using the profile. What do you do with it once you've got it? And know these can shift. It's an iteration. It's not solid. It doesn't just stay and then never change. These can shift on you depending on your product and who you're targeting. And this is one way to do it. Now, I had someone tell me, I was doing a class and they said, well, I don't sell direct to consumer. I sell to other businesses, not consumers directly. So if you don't sell direct to consumer and you sell to businesses, you do the same thing. It's just a little bit different profile, right? So businesses can have personas as well. Other businesses, if you're B2B instead of B2C. So you can have both. It's just different. Make sense?
So we have a question.
Yes.
Several of us here in the room work in infrastructure areas.
Yes.
So we're building tools, whatever, for our
Internal groups.
internal groups.
Yep, not individuals, but they're for groups.
So when you look at this,
It's different.
it's different.
Yep, because it's not direct out to a consumer. So that's very similar to what I was just saying about business to business, where you're going to a business instead of direct to a consumer. You guys are going to profiles, which would be more like a business user who has no technology knowledge, someone who makes infrastructure buying decisions, whatever it is, right? But there's going to be different personas of who you serve as your customers. Oh, we just lost one of my microphones. I have two of them.
Or are you aware of something similar to this?
That would do, yeah, more the internal. Yes, so what you would do is internal user groups, because are yours all internal user groups then? Internal to your company? Okay, so yes, so you can look at it in terms of here's what I do internally, and here's the different user groups. So what I would do with you guys is we'll take a note and I'll have Jodelle send one that's targeted towards internal users. So if anyone has internal user groups that you're servicing as opposed to externalized customers outside your organization, we have a different one you can use for that. Does this kind of make sense so far? Okay, so if you have internal user groups for this activity, just use Becky's Cake Shop and don't do wedding cakes, but do another demographic when we do this, just to get kind of the muscle memory of how to do this. So if you have internal user groups, instead of doing your internal user group, or you can if you think you could do it without the sheet, you can, but if you want to use the practice of going through the mechanism of creating one, you can use the Urban Cake Shop, but we'll do a different demographic than a wedding customer. Can you think of anyone else who would go to a cake shop? Birthday parties, exactly. Birthday cakes, yep. So that would be your demographic. You could use that if you choose to. So what I want you to do, and the reason I'm gonna have you do this is because I know how we all work. If I don't have you think about this for a second and actually think through one of your customers or your personas, you walk out of here, you take the sheet, and then you never use it. So we're gonna take 5 minutes to just think about for you guys how you would build a persona, either for your organization for something that you do, so building one of your avatars or personas for your organization, or helping just walk through the patterning and thought process to build it for the Urban Cake Shop for a different type of customer, okay? So I'll give you 5 minutes. So take this, what we gave you, as a template, not as the de facto. Make sense? So use it as a template and then tweak it and refine it to you. So that's what we want you to do, is start thinking down the process of what would these things be. For some of you, you may not have psychographics. That's going to shift. It's going to be different because I've got these internal customer groups. But one of the things we talked about with an internal customer group is, how do you get feedback from them? What's their mechanism? Because they're not using OpenTable to put reviews out there usually, right? And telling you objectively what they think. So you have to extract the information in different ways. Then we talked about over here with internal groups, does your internal groups understand what the purpose or goal of what your tool is? Right? Because they may be like, this sucks. And you're like, well, it's just so you have a tool, not so you're delighted by the tool, right? Like, sometimes that's the case. So there could be a mismatch of the goal of what you actually build and create from an organizational perspective to the consumer you're serving inside the organization, right? So that could be a disconnect. So maybe part of what you have to do is an education on, this is the purpose of the tool, right? Like, this is why we use it. It's not, to be the most efficient, effective thing. It's utilitarian, right? It could be. That could be the idea. So tweak this template and make it your own. But the idea is consciously categorizing and figuring out what your personas or avatars are and then operating as them, right? So organizations actually have people then, like I said, go in and test and operate like this as you roll out new features where they're embodying this persona or this avatar. And then one of the other things that came up, we were talking about tools when you're distributed, because some of you may also have very distributed teams. So as you're going through the design process, you may not sit right next to some of the people on the team, so it's not as easy as throwing sticky notes up on a wall in a conference room to get this stuff ideating and iterating on them. So one of the things we talked about that Vanguard uses, which is it's cool. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, an app called Mural. So it basically just, it kind of simulates that experience of being in a room and doing those divergent and convergent exercises. It's a little bit clumsy at first, but I actually found it works pretty well.
Yeah, and I think they're getting better. Mural, to simulate like a virtual team. And then the other thing that I've seen, this is a new tool too. I'm gonna have to check the name because I think it was in stealth mode, secret mode. I think it's out of that now. But there's a tool that basically, you know, sticky notes, like if you guys came up with them and you took pictures of them, it uses AI to classify those and to group them for you and gives you some intelligence virtually around it. So you can just take photos of all the stickies and then it'll layer artificial intelligence on top of it. That's kind of cool now. There's some new tools coming out as the idea, because as you're doing more of this, people need the capability to have that remote interface and interaction, and then the capability to analyze the information and data and iterate on it quickly is the idea. So if you take nothing else away, make sure that you create some profile of a way to define and then iterate, because that could change, right? The idea of what you're doing could change, the consumers can change, your product can change, you can add new people to your portfolio that you want to go after, or you could get rid of people. Then the other topic we had besides tools and then internal was we talked about haters. So we talked a little bit more about haters, and so the key with those is if you go outside, understanding what the motivation for the people that just passionately don't like what you have, like with Apple. There are passionate haters of Apple, and Apple may be okay with some of them. A lot of us use nothing or don't use it at all, or hardly ever we're using something. Use something. Something is better than zero, right? So we're targeting that user, because what we said, most important thing is our users or our consumer. We're building it for someone. So if we're not actively thinking about who we're building it for, or if that person's changed or evolved, which it can, as in our cake example, it can change over time. Our consumer can change. Even our internal consumer can change. So when we think about internal tools, right? 5-10 years ago, people didn't use things like Slack and those messenger tools, right? They were using email. But now if you're in charge of communication tools inside your company, there's a lot of new consumers you have that just graduated. We've got the first group of people that graduated this last year that have lived in what we call the technology generation. They've always had computers, always, their entire life. Like since they were little, they've had computers. So they're a different user than your people that have worked in your company for 40 years that grew up without a computer at one point, right? And didn't have email. And then you've got people kind of in the middle, right? So you're getting the idea. You have different personas inside your organizations, and those personas are shifting as our population shift as well. So they want different things. So even you guys, as I make stuff internal, have a different demographic you're going after now of what they even want in their tool and their tooling, right, that they're using. Okay, questions? We're good? All right, you're all just hungry. We get to eat lunch in 15 minutes. So we'll also have this. What stops us a lot from innovating is the idea it takes too long to change, right? I don't want to change because I'm already doing it and I'm pushing this box up the hill and I'm going to keep doing it. Even though it's not hard, I'm too busy. I'm just too busy, I'm too busy, I'm too busy. But sometimes if we stop and we just think about it for a little while, and a lot of people will say, Jennifer, this seems like it takes longer than if I just come up with some requirements and I build stuff and then I just throw it out and see if they liked it. The idea is if you actually stop and you put some thought into it and you put the wheels on it instead of just continuing to push that thing up the hill, that it may take you a little longer the first time, but then it's much easier after that. Right? So sometimes we have to slow ourselves down and actually stop and go, is there a better way to do this? And yeah, it'll take longer the first time, but I need to kind of try something different, right? You'll see this with people all the time. They're really good subject matter experts at what they do, and they'll try and train someone else to do what they do or share the knowledge, and they'll go, oh, I'm so frustrated. It takes longer to tell you. I just could do it myself and I'll be done. right? But the idea is we want to teach those other people. We want to try those new things because eventually having more people that can do it is better than just one person who's pushing the thing up the hill by themselves, even though it takes longer. We got to get in that habit of doing it. And then there's going to be left and right brain people. When you create your teams to come up with these solutions, you're going to have people that see problems differently fundamentally based on who we are as humans. We all have preferences for left and right brained activities. We've heard this probably our whole lives. And what you want to do is mix your teams up with some of those left and right brain thinkers. One of the things we intentionally do in our company now that I could build it from the ground up with the people we wanted was we put the left and the right brain together because they see the problem differently, fundamentally, right? You're going to have the left half of the brain doing this situational analysis, right? They're going to go, ooh, if we did this, then this. They're going to have all these wild and crazy ideas. And then you're going to have these other people that they may say nothing. They're sitting back and they're just observing and thinking and gathering data. Right? There's data gatherers. They just go out, they go get a bunch of stuff. They may say nothing in the first few sessions. They come back with all this information, right? We all approach problems differently and have different points of view. You need to understand in those teams what you've got and what their own tendency is and leverage both when you're coming up with solutions. Because otherwise you're building something that fits certain minded individuals and doesn't take into account the other perspective or persona that people have. And some people are really good at idea generation. Some people are really good at defining pain, right? We all know those people. They're like, and this is a problem, and this is a problem, and this is a problem. And then you have those people that are like, everything's wonderful, right? And they're like, and we could do this, and it would be amazing, and they're super positive. This is what we're talking about. You want those different points of view and perspectives as you're doing your design thinking, so it's not all groupthink. We've probably had that. You look at organizations, and we used to do this at Oracle. We had one team where we just even looked at who they hired or were hiring in this particular group. And like, if you were to chart them out, everyone knows those personality profiles, right, that you take. So like, if you were to take a circle and it was a circle one, everyone was within like this quadrant, like literally almost stacked on top of each other in an entire giant circle, right? So they weren't coming up with a lot of new ideas because everyone sat in the same space on the spectrum and there was no diversity of thought. Make sense? So what I did give you on your tables too, some of you may already have it in your organizations, but there's a sheet that looks like this. Everyone see that? They're gonna need one, I guarantee it. We'll pass one from this table, they might have a spare. But what this is a quick tool too in your teams to see how diverse your thought is. How diverse of thought is my team? So even if you don't use a formal tool, you go through this, it literally takes less than 5 minutes. You don't let people think about it too hard. If they're taking 10, tell them hurry up. It's not that hard, right? So all they have to do is you look at these words and you quickly circle all the ones you would use to describe yourself. That's what you would do if we were doing this. Quickly circle them. You would count them up at the bottom. You would have your top, your second, your third, your fourth. The idea being, if you have everyone who has the same top color in the team and you don't have that diversity, you probably need to look at getting some other folks in that team to get some other ideas. Just one way to look at it. Super simple way to do that to see how diverse of thought the team is in their perspective and what they're looking at. Make sense? Quick way to do it. Idea being though, you want diversity of thought when you're doing this process, otherwise you get groupthink. The other thing we're going to see in technology as a fundamental challenge, we'll hit on it quickly, is we have too much work and not enough time to do all the things we're going to do. There's a book out there. Has anyone read the book, What Do We Do When Machines Do Everything? There's a book by a futurist called Ben Pring, and it's What Do We Do When Machines Do Everything? And it's a good book because it gets us thinking about, as we inject more artificial intelligence in our lives, what do we do and what are we good at as people? Because our jobs will start to evolve whether we like it or not, right? They're already using it in a lot of spaces in a lot of industries. So the idea is fundamentally X plus AI, which just means at some point, X is whatever job we perform. Any job will involve some part of AI at some point. So what I encourage everyone, especially if you're in the technology space, is inform yourself on where it makes sense and have a plan. Because what happens if we don't is other people in our businesses or our organizations are going to hear about it and then try and put it in, and it may not fit what you need it for. Or may not be a good use case, right? So X plus AI, and what do we do when machines do everything? There's a lot of things AI doesn't do well that we need to be able to do as humans. So I would encourage everyone to think about learning a little bit about it, what it is, how to do it, what makes sense about it, where it would be applicable in the things you're doing to solve the problem that they're trying to solve, which is this complexity of what we have. There's a lot of routine tasks that we do that's easier to have AI or machines help us with that. Voice of the customer, sentiment bots, we call them, that go out and crawl and get sentiment data and pull it back. You know how long it would take us to troll like all these websites, pull all the data back, and then analyze it? I mean, by the time we did, literally, the data's outdated and we'd have to go do it again, right? So those types of things. RPA, a lot of you are probably hearing RPA or the RPA terms for robotic process automation. That's stuff like entry of, every time everyone hires a person, you have to put their information into all these different systems to process it all the way through. Can you use robotic process automation to put that data in all the systems, and then if they leave, it takes it all back out, right? Like when they leave, it terms them in all the systems so that you don't have things hanging where someone forgot to do it. That type of stuff. So here, AI and RPA, getting a knowledge of that, good thing to do as we move into this.
Jennifer, what was the book again that you just
Oh, what do we do when machines do everything? And it's Ben Pring. He's a futurist. It's out on Amazon. And this is one of the things I keep track of too. So this is the hype cycle around artificial intelligence that Gartner produces. What it basically just says, things on this left side are really new and they don't really have applicability yet. Like they're things that are coming out that they're really cool, but we're not there yet. So when we talk about artificial generalized intelligence, that's like the movie stuff that we look at, right? Where we have the bots are taking over everything, and someone actually, that we work with a lot of people in this space who have been in it for years. So AI is not new. It's been around for a long time. We've actually been using it a long time. Since the late 70s, early 80s, it's been around. What's different now from then, because a lot of people are like, well, it's always been here. Compute. Compute got cheaper. We have much more compute power than we've ever had before, was one of the things. And the algorithms have gotten smarter. So it's all about math and the algorithm. Those two things is what makes the stuff over here that's in the disillusionment going this way, things that are real now. So you'll recognize GPU and speech recognition, voice recognition is way over there. We're using it. Right? How many of you have Alexa or something else you talk to and it basically does stuff like turn your lights off, unlocks your doors, does all that? It's already there. The next ones you're going to see is computer vision. That's actually one of the ones that we use. Computer vision, what it is it sees the screen the way you see it based off of patterning. Pretty cool stuff. But that's one that's also going to hit like voice pretty soon. So anything you can view on a screen is a good place to start or think about AI in your teams is computer vision, because that's kind of on this cycle of people are going to start using it the way you see voice technologies in the industry. But this is good to keep track of just for all of us of where is it, what's happening with it, what makes it real, and having some understanding of it. So as you move into your technology career, I don't even care what you're doing in tech, you should keep track of this because it's something that will impact all of us at some point. Let me see. Seeing if this is actually an analysis of some tools that are out there and what they do for AI. We look at this frequently of what's available and what does it do in terms of organizations, because it's confusing. AI is a term a lot of people use, but it doesn't mean they have real artificial intelligence. It's a buzzword. So you have to try and decipher noise from reality. So that's the things we try and do is decipher noise from reality across the tool cycle. These are things we look at where I'd put AI. I told you voice of the customer. Visual diffing doc compare, another good place to put it. Because who wants to honestly look at contracts across states and compare those documents manually? That seems horrific, right? And even streaming. So streaming quality. Did you know that there's people that just sit and watch streams of different videos on different platforms? I mean, Game of Thrones is good, but how many times can you watch the same one, right? Eventually, after 100 times, it probably gets old. So, and that's what they do across all these platforms. And then performance testing, it's really good at some of that stuff. So I give you this just as a little bonus of where I would start thinking about it, because it will impact all of us at some point. What I would tell you is, as you transform and try new things. And it favors people who are prepared to look at new strategies, new things. So do that. Products and technology will continue to evolve. We're going to have lots of change. We're going to see more businesses suffer if they don't ready themselves for being digital, if they're not adopting new strategies, new ways of going to market, new ways of doing design thinking and looking at products. One of the patterns we see is perpetual learners, the people who are going to be able to evolve their career in technology over the next 10, 20, 30 years. The consistent theme is, I'm open to learning, right? Because it's all new things. Now, students who graduate, even with computer science degrees, the majority of what they learn their first 2 years is outdated by their third year. That's how fast tech's changing, right? And then be creative, Use the design thinking process, discover, create, deliver. Use the parts that make sense to you, but do some of it, right? Even if you just do the pain part. Let's all understand pain, right? Or maybe the profiling with your avatars, but do something. But it's about thinking, but not just thinking, but taking the next step to doing. We think a lot, but then it's all about, did we do something different with the information we got? So what I would tell you is, if you guys have questions, I'll put emails up there. Hopefully this was useful for you. But thanks for hanging out this morning with me, you guys.